Yeah. What up, yo? Welcome back. I see the world as inside the cells that's inside of me. Prodigy, living my life like I won the lottery because I did. I know my presence a gift and I'm rich. God's favored and born to be doing this. What's good? Welcome back. Yesterday we talked about the game. What game are you playing? We did, I think that was part two. We did 2 episodes on what is the game that you're playing. We talked about life as a game. We talked about this life and this consciousness and this experience as a game that is so intricate that it allows you to choose the parameters and the rules and the goals and the values and the checkpoints. And it allows you to choose the whole thing as you play it and to update it as you go. Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. And so today we're going to talk further about the game inside the game. The game. Remember the game from wrestling? I was roommates with a guy who was a crazy wrestling fan. So I have a little bit of wrestling knowledge. And I got into it a little bit during that period. Then, I don't know where it is now. I don't know any of the people. Anyway, the game. We're talking about the game inside the game today. And we're talking about the game underneath the game that undergirds the game. In order to talk about this part of the game, you kind of got to get a little vulnerable, I think. You got to do more of the introspection that we've been talking about this whole time, the authenticity, to notice and to understand what is motivating us, what is driving us. So while yesterday we were talking about the game, like choosing between like the grind hustle game or the, networking and corporate world game, or is life about play? Like, what is your philosophy and all these different things? Today we're talking about underneath that, the motivations underneath it. And what I've realized for myself, and I'm going to talk specifically about myself, and this might relate to you as well, is for much of my life, even into my adulthood life, there's been a validation need, a validation feeling, a feeling of lack of being seen and wanting to prove my worth, wanting to show people, look at me, look how talented I am, look what I can do, check it out. Or even look how good I am, look how decent I am, look at the choices I've made. You know what I'm saying? And this goes way back for me. I think it goes back to, some of my earliest relationships. My mom and I have a good relationship and I love her very much. But she's also very stoic. She's also always just been that. Like, we give each other a hug when we see each other, and she'll ask a general question, and then we talk, and then we give you a hug, and we keep it moving. It's not like some parents, you see the parents and the kid, and you're like, oh, they have a friendly kind of situation, a friendly relationship. Me and my mom was always mother-son. And she would be a source of validation of a kind. But I just never felt like I could be fully myself with her. I felt like, she's my mom. That makes sense. But growing up, even, let's get into like college. Sheba is one of the few people who knows this story. But I played college football, and senior year I was captain of the football team. And I remember this girl. I'm going to call her Susie for the purpose of this video. This girl that she's one of the first people I met on campus. And we started off just being friends, and we'd date a little bit, a little sexy time. And she was cool. She was cool people. We had a good relationship. But I remember, like, I've known her, like I said, one of the first people on campus. By the time I graduated 4 years later, she never came to a single one of my football games. Never showed up to a single one of my football games. And I remember her reasoning was that I had a bunch of other girls who would go to my football games. Like, I'm in demand and lots of girls want to go. You can get her to go. You don't need me. Fucking, she would intentionally sort of not show up for the things that I held really close and dear to me. Football at the time was my whole life, and I was good at it. And I wanted her to check it out. She'd be like, no, no. And at first you think it's a joke, but then you go year after year, and then by the fourth year, you're captain of the team. You're like, hey, and she would deliberately, she's like, no, you know what I want to do? I want to go all 4 years without ever going to one of your football games. I kind of want to do that, and she did it successfully. And the way I saw it was, I at the time it felt like you can't demonstrate that something's wrong or that something's bothering you. Like our relationship was more friendly and chill. Um, and another opportunity there where I wasn't able to engage fully with the disappointment. I wasn't able to articulate it to myself. I tried to dismiss it as best as I could, and I certainly couldn't articulate it to her because on some level I would lose if I showed that kind of emotion or that kind of need while she was deliberately withholding something. Um, I also got the lesson that sometimes people can that this is how people perceive, that this is a way that people are, you know what I mean? That I was too good and that people that there was I wouldn't even call it maybe resentment, but also just like a deliberate desire to put you down a peg. Um, and so I learned to show less. I learned to show less of myself, even all the things that I'm doing. And this thing is from college. But her voice has kind of rung in the back of my mind for probably way too much of my adult life, if I'm honest, that I'm fully comfortable admitting. But that's what this is about. We're gonna be vulnerable here today. And inside of me, at several points in my life, not for her, but just generally, it's this kind of a similar kind of like she was a lens for me to understand like what was potentially happening as I would create something, and I would, I started a news magazine, you know what I mean, back in like 2007, alternate independent journalism magazine, and you get this tepid response from friends and family and sort of low level, interest, support. Say, look at this, look what I'm doing, look. Then I would get into the arts and I was creating animations and creating 3D scenes and learn as I was learning that, I'm sharing that. And I'm like, hey, look at my talent, look at my passion. I'm now telling you more about my inner world. I think during the whole time I played it very close to the chest and I shared merely because, hey, everyone shares, and however the response would be, I would quietly internalize a story that, man, lots of people are seeing my stuff and choosing not to give me my props, choosing not to notice what I'm bringing to the table. And it was an interesting experience, I got to say. I'm looking at it now with hindsight because, I'm telling you now, my ability to talk about this comes from the process of the healing that I've gone through to get me to where I am now. Right? I look at when we started the journalism magazine, um, the animation work I was doing. The journalism magazine was also an act of activism, frankly, in a climate of crazy, bad corporate news. Even back then, kind of look at my talent, look at my passion, look at my goodness, look, I'm a good person. Look at my care. Look at the risks I'm taking. Look at my creativity. That stretches into the present and the music that I'm making. I started making music about 5 years ago. I left CNN with a firm purpose of sort of like putting major contrast and bringing light to the media stuff that I had learned. Um, 5 years ago too, around that same time, I was like I said, really working on posting on social media, on my website, writing think pieces, critique, talking about media literacy, talking about truth, mixing, the philosophy of truth and trying to analyze the media in a different and unique way. And what came with that too was like all these other things. I'm writing about masculinity. I'm writing about trying to think about Black masculinity in particular and how to think about it differently, about words, getting into linguistics, right? And, you know, all the while, these are choices I'm making of my own volition. These are choices that were driven by an intuition, but all the while there's a looking out in the world and like hoping for more validation than I think I was receiving, you know, and trying to understand that, trying to make peace with that, with varying success in terms of that peace part. But if I had to be honest, like I said, is that we talk about the game on one level. I'm trying to talk underneath that now, being honest and vulnerable about my own shit and how a desire for validation, external validation, has been a driver. It's not the full driver. It's not I didn't leave CNN to be validated, right? I left for the reasons I've said on multiple episodes, but I've also been especially as I left, I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? And I figured I needed to be, visible, and it would help if I got some validation from the people who knew me, people who know me, the people who know I've been doing this work for years, and this is something that I care about, who know that I bring a lot to this. I had to just realize, like, people were in, various states of whatever, and could only engage with me on the level that they could. This is a phenomenon that I could give language to it, but it would fail the moment. Some people are still in cable news, and the words that I'm saying, however true, however valid, even they might admit that it's true, it still stings in a certain way, or they don't want to be publicly, in that contradiction. Other people see me and remember me from high school, and you know what I'm saying, and other people don't really see or understand how, like, as an artist, how valuable it is to get that validation, get those likes, or that subscribe thing. They don't even understand it. They can't join you in the thing, even if you say it over and over. Hey. But I think the growth and the healing from all of that has come from just like accepting what is, and realizing, frankly, that all of these things happen for some reason. Like that longing was, however it showed up, you know what I'm saying, that was my test. It's like, how does that tension manifest for you, and how can you channel that well, and will that slow you down somehow? Will you stop? Will you give up? Kind of thing, which is available to all of us, right? We can always kind of fall into a despair on something, and move away from our intuitions. I'm grateful that I didn't let that happen to me at all. I had my periods of difficulty. I had my internal, tumult and challenges. And then I learned to let go of stuff. I became good at doing stuff solo, doing stuff anyway. It doesn't mean I'm not observant. Like, I'm very observant. I let shit slide. I see stuff. I observe stuff. I partly I let shit slide because I know that I don't know everything. I don't hold on to things. I'm not quick to hold on to a story that may not be the real story, or the full story. I learned to validate myself, and the truth is, after years of really like pushing myself through these kinds of things, it's made me this person that I am. I don't know if I'd be the same person in some other configuration. I'm literally the best at the stuff that I do, period, ever. The approach and the creativity and the consistency and the collaboration. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm unique. I'm the best in part because I'm unique. I'm doing it my way. It's entirely one of one. That's because I chose that. And that's because the anxieties and the tensions traveled through me in such a way that produced that. And so I'm grateful. I don't have any ill will for anyone that I've met or that I know or who've disappointed me one way or another. I'm also aware that, people have been doing their thing. People have launched books and people have started businesses and have, what I'm saying, had babies. And I might have missed moments for them, just as they've missed moments for me. Generally, when someone's going through something, um, and has reached a milestone for them, I definitely try to be vocal and supportive and all of that. But the game inside the game for a lot of my young adult life, the choices from, what I'm saying, early on wanting to get into politics or leaving that space, the things that came from that. I had my own desires, I had my own intentions, I had my own perspectives and a moral compass that was my own. And then I had this like lingering, driving desire to be validated by the peer groups that were around me um, at different times in my life. And what a powerful thing we say that we shouldn't want validation. But I think validation, I think that's true for so many of us. I think underneath a lot of our decisions, for most of us, validation is a key part of it. And I think the path for me has been um, a powerful and freeing one, where I noticed that it just wouldn't work as I'm writing my political views, or I'm writing my music. If I'm trying to hold on to validation from my mom, I might have to stay away from certain things. If I'm looking oh, is this mic back? All right. Yeah. Okay. Maybe this works without the mic now. Yeah, it's off again. How about now? La la la. Now that I take the mic off, it should be working. But yeah, it's not about being seen. It's not about being validated. Um, the art can't be driven by that. That's part of the problem with journalism is this weird loop that occurs. We don't notice it. We don't talk about it. We don't have language to describe this. But there's a mirror thing that's happening, where the journalists and the journalism organizations are trying to seek audiences, and so the audience is itself warping the journalist's ability to articulate truth as is, which then pulls them entirely away from the practice of journalism, because they're not just creating content to entertain an audience. They're creating content to educate an audience or to inform an audience about a truth, about what is in the moment. So the mirror thing is a thing. It might be a thing of, it's like psychological thing. It's a sociological thing. It might be relate to physics. It might relate to physics. This mirror phenomena, and 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 um and the game inside the game is one of like going just a bit deeper to ask what motivates me, and to shed a story, any story of lack, any story of wanting, any story that told you that you needed to perform something to be loved or to be seen. Grateful that I had this desire, this like kind of perfectionist desire. There's always a thing. If I could say the right thing, if I could do the dopest thing, wait till I finish that project. Then they're gonna like me. Then they're gonna. Well, people like me generally. Like it's another thing. But then they're gonna validate my art. Then they're gonna validate the product of what I did. They're gonna validate me for that thing that I did. You know, it's a mental construction, and it's a choice. Once you see it, you realize it's a choice. So, all that to say, I'm grateful for who I am. I'm grateful for the people I've met and the choices that I've made. I'm grateful for the challenges that presented themselves at every step. I'm grateful for how I perceive the challenges, even if I perceive them a little bit off, you know? I perceive them as I could have at the moment, you know, and with the best intentions and the best effort. And then I keep it moving. I'm grateful for my ability to be fluid. I'm grateful for my ability to roll with the punches and to evolve my understanding. I'm grateful for my calm. I'm grateful that I'm not someone to fly off the handle. I'm not quick to anger. I'm not quick to hold a grudge. I'm grateful for the whole thing. I'm grateful for consciousness and for God and for you being here, and I see the God in you. Check out the rest of the channel and subscribe to this YouTube. And check me out on BillyBunton.com. We are dropping some new music very soon. A new album, One True King. And it's fantastic. I've been working on it for a while. Very proud of it. And yeah. Talk to you later. Peace.